I may have not read as many books as the last couple of months, but I've definitely read humongous ones. Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be my August wrap-up, aka I'm going to review all of the books that I have read during the month. I finished 8 books. There are a couple that I didn't finish, but within these there are 2 that I really need to talk about because I have strong opinions. So let's get to it. 8 books because mainly I try to focus on reading a lot of big books and mostly continuing series because it's one of my challenges this year to attempt to finish or catch up to 10 series. And I was at 4 at the beginning of the month, so clearly at the end of the year is approaching. I was starting to feel the pressure, so I made it a challenge to do that throughout the month, and I am now at 9. So the first one that I caught up to is the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the slow regard of silent things, which is number 2.5 in the series. I read book 1, liked it. Book 2, not really. It was kind of a mess. And then this one is like a novella following Ori, one of the side characters. She lives on the school. She's interesting, but I didn't know how I would feel about this novella about her. And it was okay. Like, it was a 3.5 stars. You're just following her through like a couple of her days, which it was fun to know what, you know, she actually does with her time, but I don't feel like this brought much to the story. I do overall enjoy the writing style of the author, but I could have just never read this and would not have lost anything. But, you know, I did it. So one more series finished. Next we have the best book that I've read this month by far, Parable of the Talents by Octavia E. Butler. This is the second book in the series. This was actually meant to be a trilogy, but unfortunately the author passed away before she could write book 3. However, good news, you can read it as a duology. It's done on its own really well. Obviously the third book would have been nice, but you can read it as a duology, and I highly recommend this. On Goodreads, actually my review was that this is one of the best books that I've ever read, but I never want to reread it again. And yeah, this was slightly traumatic. Book 1 was good. It was like a 4.25. You're following the character as she's like between the age of 15, 18, young black woman in a society that is like slowly crumbling, and it feels so close to her reality. And she's trying to create a community for people to help each other and like basically starts her own religion. That was book 1. I wasn't sold on the whole religion thing. Book 2 was amazing. 5 stars. So good. A lot happens. I appreciated the author doesn't shy away from discussing really difficult topics, and the way she handles them is really good. Like, there's no like 10-page essay scene, you know? It's still things, it's obviously it happens in that world, but the way she handles it, I think, is like perfect. And I absolutely hated some of the characters, absolutely love some of them, and this was like, look at how many post-its this was good. This was so good. I can't recommend this enough. Obviously might want to look up some trigger warnings, but one of the best books I've ever read. Easy. So that was me completing another series. Another one I finished was the First Love Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is Last Argument of Kings, which is the 3rd book. It was a chunky one. Unfortunately, I feel the same way about book 1 than book 3. Well, book 1 was at 4.5 stars, and this one is at 3 stars for me. My issue, maybe 3.5. My issue with it is that it still feels like a prologue of a story. And it's book 3. I still like the characters. I feel like they're well developed. They're interesting. They're all morally gray. And I appreciated some of the twists that happen, but it still feels like there's too many things that are unanswered. It doesn't feel like the completion of a series. I'm aware that there's like 3 standalones afterwards, and then there's another trilogy. My library doesn't have the standalone, so I might just skip ahead and read the first book in the 2nd trilogy because I own it somewhere. Somewhere. But I'm not in a rush. I'm kind of disappointed because the potential of the characters was there, but I wanted more. I just wanted so much more. It's okay though. I finished a series, so there's that. Next one. Okay, I wanted to give authors a second chance. So first book, I didn't love it, but I wanted to continue the series to participate into this challenge and decide if I wanted to continue or not. The first one I finished was Golden Sun by P.S. Brown. I had read Red Rising, and I had an issue with, well, straight from the beginning, it's not a spoiler, it happens like within the first couple chapters. The wife of the main character, they're both 16. She's murdered, and that's what starts his whole revenge story, which I'm not a fan of that trope, but I looked past it, and the book was fine. It was like a 3.5. So I read book 2 6 years later, and I kind of feel the same-ish. Like, I feel like it started really slow, and then eventually things picked up. I do think that the friendships between the characters is the best part of the book. The political intrigues are interesting. The ending was by far the best part of the book. When I was done during the vlog, I was like, oh, this might be a 4 stars. And the more I think about it, the more no. It probably is going to be rounded down to a 3 because I feel like it doesn't compensate for the fact that there's 2 more tropes in here that I don't like, or things in there that I don't like. So I'm kind of just a bit meh about it. I don't love it as much as everyone else. I think that plays into it. I feel like I expected to absolutely love these books, book 1 and 2, and I just didn't. So I feel like that obviously plays into my enjoyment, or less enjoying, lower enjoyment. But yes, I thought I was going to continue this series because I do own book 3, but then someone told me, which I'm grateful for, that one of the things I didn't like in book 2 happens again in book 3, which deal breaker. So I am done with this series. So I guess it brings me to one more finished series, because I did say I would count series that I'm not finishing after reading one more book because I didn't care for them. So that's that. Another one that counts for the challenge, but I did not finish, The Blinding Knife by Brent. This is the second book in is it called the Black Prism series? I don't think so. The first book is the Black Prism, and I read the first book 5 years ago. It made it to my most disappointing books of 2017, I think. I went ham in that video, as I usually do for my end of the year series. But I still thought there was a ton of potential with like the magic system and like the magical school setting, which I'm a big fan of. So I decided to eventually give it a second shot, but I came prepared with Post-it this time because I didn't do that the first time. Everywhere there's a pink Post-it. There was a scene with some kind of sexism or like female characters being like objectified for no reason. It was nonstop. I didn't finish this book. I kind of gave up putting Post-it after 200 pages. So let me this is like page 200. Like, look how many Post-its. It was just relentless. And my issue is that I didn't care about the characters enough to compensate. Like, there has to be something, right? And I was enjoying magical school setting and a magic, but I didn't like any of the characters. Kip, who was the least offensive storyline, ended up actually being the reason I put down the book, which is a big spoiler, but I can put it in the comment section, or I'll link the vlog. You can hear me rant about it, because it crossed the line, like way crossed the line. But he was the least offensive one at first. He was just very negative and insecure, which it makes sense for a 15-year-old boy. That I'll allow. I would have even allowed him being like objectifying female characters a bit, because again, 15-year-old boy, fine. The only thing is I didn't put Post-it because I don't think I own enough Post-it. He was just very vocal about being insecure, like the amount of time he calls himself a moron or awkward. There's even a scene of like a woman measuring him for clothes and like telling him that he needs to bathe. Like it's anyway. Then you have Gavin, the main male character, who's like a complete ass. He's supposed to be, but I think you're supposed to root for him, but I really didn't. He's a perv and he's creepy. The amount of nipples that are described from his point of view is just too much. And then you have Karis, who's the main female character, and frankly, she's the reason I put the book down. Well, no. The scene with Kip is the reason, but like she annoyed me so much. In book 1, there's a scene of her being like insecure about her manly shoulders. She's a soldier. She's been for 15 years. Like, she should be proud of her muscle. It made no sense with her character. And it's no different in this one, because that scene that I just showed you, like there's 4 posts in one page. She's literally being like, oh, she was sweaty, stinky, and sticky. How could he compliment her now? Are you serious right now? And she's complaining that she's not being very ladylike. Have you spoken to a woman ever? No, I hated her. So yeah, I decided to give up because at that point I wasn't enjoying it enough to compensate. And someone once again gave me a spoiler, which again, not mad. In very specific instances, I don't mind spoilers when I ask for them. Someone told me that what happens with the mystery, which was one of the only reason I was continuing. And I'm so glad I didn't finish the series, because I would have been pissed. So yeah, it counts into not finishing series, but you know, for the challenge. So I am now at 9 finish or caught up or will not finish series. So successful with that challenge. Not necessarily successful with loving these. Maybe there was a reason deep down I wasn't continuing these series. There are still a few on my pile that I'm looking forward to, like Brent Sanderson, there's Jade War, there's The Great Hunt, like The Wheel of Time. There's a few that I'm still hopeful, but wasn't super lucky with this pal, unfortunately. At least decisions were made, though. One more book I gave up on before we go to the audiobooks, Crime and Punishment. This is the first time that I fail at finishing a book club pick because it's a Russian classic. I should have seen it coming. I really tried. I gave up. I think it was like part 5, chapter 4, or was it the opposite? Anyway, I gave up. I gave up. I'm giving up. I'm not going to continue or finish this ever. I just couldn't do it. I even had the audiobook and I couldn't, like, how hard is it to just listen to an audiobook. Apparently too much for this book. I no. Honestly, this was pure torture. Yeah, that's it. But like, you're just following a main male character who's like a young-ish student, and he believes that because he's morally a better person, he should be allowed to kill people, like decide who deserves to live or die. I just couldn't connect to anything the characters, the writing, the story, none of it. Ooh, I almost forgot. Pachinko. I did finish that book. I enjoyed it as an audiobook. The thing is, my interest was really high in the beginning, went down for a while during the middle, and then the ending was good. So I'm kind of on the fence in terms of rating. I feel like it's probably a 3.5, but I don't feel like it represents how I feel about it, because some parts were so good, but some of them really not for me. Well, not bad, but just I wasn't enjoying myself. I watched the first episode of the TV show. I'm planning on continuing eventually, which it seemed to work better because of the timeline. We're like flip-flopping instead of like in one go. So I think that might work better for me in that format. I also finished Atlas of the Heart, which was about emotions. Honestly, I picked it up because it seemed popular and I had no idea what it was. Being overly honest here, but it's about emotions, which was interesting. I feel like the second half was much better than the first half. I feel like it was too fast though. I mean, it makes sense. It's like kind of a hint on that topic, like just a little piece to get you interested, and then I guess you can do more research, but we don't know that much about emotions. We're not very in touch with our emotions, I feel like. So this was interesting, but it's definitely like surface level, which is probably the best way to reach more people nowadays. I also finished I'm Glad My Mom Died, which, that title though, definitely eye-catching. This is a memoir, and I don't read a ton of memoir, but again, with that one, the title, that I needed to know how it was. I do want to mention trigger warning for eating disorders. I went into it knowing absolutely nothing, and that's like 70% of the book, which obviously it's the author's life. It makes sense. And obviously in that industry, movies, TV shows, her relationship with her mother, or very problematic relationship with her mother. It was great. I just don't know what to read. I hate reading memoirs. I just, like, who am I to judge your life? But I guess. You don't know this, but I've been trying to say this word for like 10 minutes in defense of witches. Which is funny because the author wrote this book in French. This is a translation, and for some reason I kept trying to say it in French. I listened to it as an audiobook, which the narrator was great because she was able to speak French, and there's a lot of flip-flopping because there's a lot of name of like articles and stuff that are in French. So it was nice. I think that was a must to have a narrator that does speak French. And I feel like this book was really interesting. I don't think I learned that much, and it was a little dry, yet I enjoyed it. I don't feel like I'm selling it here, but I just think it's a really interesting concept to look into, the whole like, women gossiping, how it's like seen as such a negative thing while it's something that protects us, or like how older women must be jealous of younger women. That's why they look down on relationships with men, when really they know better and they would love to, share that knowledge, but keeping it down, that's what helps patriarchy. So those are a few things that are mentioned in the book, and I do think they're interesting. I'm always a little wary about the whole like witches and like the whole like, we're like the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn or something. It feels very new age to me, and like there's a higher chance that your ancestors were cheering as these women were burned, statistically speaking. But I did overall enjoy it, would give it 4 stars. I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it more in French, because I feel like, once again, translation felt a little dry. But if that's a topic you're interested in, would recommend it. If you have any suggestions, please let me know, because again, I do think that exploring these myths are really interesting. I feel like I'm all over the place today. It is so hot and humid. Right now it's 95% humidity. I don't know why I decided to wear long sleeves. By the way, I'm glad that most of you are okay with this background. It's obviously extremely temporary. I actually tried to film this video in the other room, and there's just too much echo. Way too much echo, which, do you want to see a sneak peek? Just a tiny one, a tiny one. Ta-da! Isn't it cool? It's gonna look so great. Now, let's talk about the books that I'm currently reading, because I am very, very excited. First off, I started Babel, which turns out it's called Babel. I cannot say it that way. But I'm like 200 pages into it. So far, I'm loving it. I swear, every time I mention I'm about to read a big popular book or anticipated book, that's when all of you come out and tell me that you hated it, which is fair, which is fair. I feel like it reduces the pressure. But so far I'm really loving it, so yay me. Dark Academia vibes. I feel like it's the time of the year we're going into fall. Also, audiobook wise, I'm listening to 2 different ones. I don't know why I decided to do that. The first one is Sex Matters, which I've mentioned I wanted to read. It's like the last one, I think, on my list of how women are mistreated in medical contexts. I've read like 10 of them, I feel like, this year. I'm going to do a review of all of the ones that I've read, nonfiction-wise, at the end of the year. So keep an eye out on that. But this one is, once again, how male-centric medicine endangers women's health and what we can do about it. This one seems to be a bit more proactive in like solution, which I'm looking forward to. The audiobook is only like 7 hours, so it shouldn't take me long, but I've only listened to an hour and so far so good. And I also started Between Two Kingdoms, which I know nothing about. I just grabbed it, but it's like somewhat related. The main character, the author, is dealing with like mysterious health issues. So clearly I have a type this year. Let me know in the comment section what are the best books you've read this month. And also if you've read any of these and you have opinions, we can discuss them in the comment section. Like I said, I'll link down below all the vlogs so you can go and hear the rants for the ones I didn't like, especially the spoilers, because some of these are really, really bad. I'm still mad at the Kip one. Unacceptable. And I will be putting on a screen actually the books that I'm planning on reading for the fall, because I have so many really fun challenges coming. And I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.